Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Arlington Board of Selectmen for February 26, 2018. We're meeting at approximately 7:15 in the Selectmen's Chambers on the second floor, Town Hall, 830 Mass Ave, Arlington, Massachusetts. My name is Joe Curo. I'm the chair of the board. I'm joined by my colleagues Dan Dunn, Clarissa Rowe, and Diane Mahan. We're also joined by our professional staff, Town Manager Adam Chapdelaine, Town Council Doug Heim, and by our board administrator, Marie Kropelka. It has been a very sad and difficult week for our greater Selectmen family here in Arlington, and I wanted to recognize several losses which were suffered within just really 2 days. First of all, I think the board all extend our condolences to our board administrator, Ms. Kropelka, on the loss of her sister-in-law, Mary Kropelka. Our recently retired office manager, Marianne Sullivan, lost her sister, Kathleen Dunn. And I think many of you know that our colleague, Mr. Greeley, lost his mother, Betty, on Thursday. That is why he is not with us this evening, that the funeral was today. Betty was someone I got to know a little bit personally over the last couple of years, and I think it's fair to say that if there was a real, true, matriarch in Arlington, that she certainly was up there. She was the wife of one of our longest-serving selectmen, father of our colleague who is the longest-serving selectman. Every one of her children gave in public service to this town, whether through the school department, the Board of Assessors, this board, through community safety, and in many other ways, civically. To talk to people who knew her a long time, I mean, no one had a bad word to say about her. And in view of all three of these losses, I would like to ask folks' indulgence in a moment of silence, please. Thank you very much. May they all rest in peace. May all their family members find comfort in the fond memories. The first item on our agenda is a proclamation which we generally adopt every year around this time. White Ribbon Day is an initiative of the Jane Doe Initiative, a project of the Jane Doe Initiative, which encourages men and boys to speak up against violence against women and other gender-based violence. And this board, most of the last years that I've been on here, at this time, we've adopted a proclamation along these lines, as White Ribbon Day is recognized on the first Thursday of every March. It's near and dear to my heart. It often falls on the birthday of my first daughter. Our own Sheriff, Peter Katusian, is actually the state co-chair of this initiative. And he joined us, I think, the last time we adopted this, and we did invite him this evening, and he was unable to make it, but we do appreciate his efforts. And with the indulgence of my colleagues, I'd like to read a proclamation from the board on this. I think it is particularly timely this year. Whereas our community is deeply concerned about the public health and public safety issues of violence against women and all gender-based violence, including sexual assault, rape, domestic violence, stalking, sexual harassment, and human trafficking. And whereas the many cultures represented in our community are all affected, including heterosexual, gay, bisexual, and transgender individuals, communities of color, immigrants, the youth, the aged, the infirm, and the differently abled. And whereas recent increased public awareness of this issue has highlighted its widespread nature in the fields of entertainment, government, business, sports, and beyond. And whereas the town of Arlington, our community safety and health and human services professionals, and our residents have exercised leadership in raising awareness about domestic and gender-based violence, encouraging us all to be upstanders, supporting survivors, holding offenders accountable, and promoting safety, equity, and nonviolence in our community. And whereas our Human Resources Department conducts ongoing training for municipal employees to raise awareness regarding sexual harassment and its prevention, And whereas the White Ribbon Day campaign believes that the majority of men wish to make a positive contribution towards ending this violence, and that by reimagining manhood, we can break down the rigid gender roles and power dynamics that contribute to and foster gender-based violence. And whereas the White Ribbon Day pledge states, from this day forward, I promise to be a part of the solution in ending violence against women and all gender-based violence. And whereas the White Ribbon Day campaign has been endorsed by public officials and leaders in law enforcement, business, education, healthcare, and athletics from throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts as a means of supporting a comprehensive approach to domestic violence. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Selectmen do hereby express support for efforts, both local and beyond, to counter the scourge of violence against women and other gender-based violence, and be it further resolved that March 1st, 2018 is proclaimed as White Ribbon Day in the town of Arlington, and that all residents are encouraged to pay fitting observance thereof. And be it further resolved that white ribbons, along with a copy of the White Ribbon Day pledge, will be available in the Selectmen's office during the week of White Ribbon Day for all municipal officials and employees and members of the public who wish to express visible support. If I could have a motion to...
So moved.
Oh, I'll take it from Mr. Dunn with a second by Ms. Rowe. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Thank you very much. And I think that it is topical. We have several items on the agenda this evening, and we're going to move a few things around on the agenda this evening, too. This is practically standing room only here tonight. I know that there are a number of people who are double booked for a training at this time. We did want to hear first on the agenda from our Human Resources Director, Karen Malloy, who's very topical. She's going to speak to the town's approach to sexual harassment and discrimination. But I will note that we will also be hearing later from CDBG applicants, several of whom also work with communities who are impacted by this problem. So this is very, very real tonight with all of the volunteers and organizations who are here. So with that, I'll recognize Karen Malloy, our Human Resources Director.
Hi, thank you for
Welcome.
having me here tonight. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Karen Malloy. I'm your Human Resources Director, and I'm responsible for the administration of the town's non-discrimination policy and policy against sexual harassment for about 400 town employees. I've been the town's HR Director for 17 years, and I've received training from the Massachusetts Commission Against Discrimination, or MCAD, on discrimination prevention and conducting internal discrimination complaint investigations. Additionally, the Massachusetts Municipal Personnel Association, of which I am a member, keeps me up to date. And as a matter of fact, sexual harassment in the workplace is the subject of our March meeting. So the policy. In your reference materials, of course, you received a copy of the policy. And it's the goal of the town of Arlington to have a workplace that is free of unlawful discrimination and harassment. Under the policy, I'm named as one of two persons to whom you can report allegations of harassment and discrimination. The other person is Special Counsel, Town Counsel Ed Marlenga. One of the many reasons I value working for the town is its high standards around creating a respectful and professional workplace. However, it's important to keep in mind that this is not just a goal or a value that we have, it is a matter of law. So who's covered by the policy? The policy applies to employees, vendors, contractors, and volunteers. For employees, upon hire, the policy is provided and reviewed as part of their orientation. By law, the policy is distributed annually to all employees by email and by hard copy with paid checks for those who do not have town email. Additionally, the policy is posted throughout work locations in the town. As for training, we do conduct trainings for our employees. For example, in the spring of 2017, the town developed a training for employees for facilities staff, including custodial employees and building maintenance who work in the schools, about appropriate conduct in the workplace. A component of that addressed harassment prevention. The training was presented by attorney Elizabeth Valerio, who serves as labor counsel to both the town and the Arlington Public Schools. This training is now a part of the onboarding process for new employees of the facilities department. Town Council will soon be conducting ethics training session for Public Works employees, and Special Counsel Ed Marlenga, who is also identified on the town's policy, as I mentioned, will be providing a refresher to our Public Works employees about discrimination and harassment in the workplace. The entire staff of the Public Works Department has already received training from an MCAD certified trainer, which also included a component specially for supervisors. Our fire and police departments take extra steps to make sure employees are aware and understand the policy. The police department, as part of its accreditation, requires officers to sign off on the town's policy. The fire department incorporates a recap of the policy as part of its regular training regimen. In the upcoming year, I plan to offer training to department heads on hiring and managing a diverse workforce, which is not specific to sexual harassment, but will help further educate and protect against other forms of workplace discrimination. So, investigations. When a person files a complaint, I am the investigator. In brief, somebody comes in, I allow them to share their allegations, and then I engage in a process of trying to get as much information as possible, which usually involves meeting and speaking with other people. An important part of the investigation is assuring people that the town will not tolerate any type of retaliation against a person who files a complaint or any person who participates in the investigation. It is also important for us to respect the due process rights of our employees when we conduct an investigation. So with that in mind, we are very thorough, but also strive to be fair and measured in our approach. Once an investigation is complete, I develop my findings of fact, and the town takes appropriate action from there. I hope that what I've shared with you this evening communicates the seriousness with which the town takes the matters of sexual harassment and workplace discrimination. I also hope that if anyone is listening tonight has something that they would like to come talk to me about, that they please do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Do any of my colleagues have any questions? Mr. Dunn.
I'm curious, with the national debate, have you seen different anything different here in town in terms of town employees?
If I'm being very honest, I think it's on people's minds, but we've had these policies in place for a very long time, and we've done training on them for a very long time. So I know sometimes cities and towns can get poked for being behind the times. I would say that we were actually a little bit ahead of the times in understanding that this is just not acceptable in the workplace.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? And if I'm understanding, it was the policies were most recently updated in 2013?
They're most recently updated in 2013. They are about to be updated again because pregnancy has become a protected class. So we will be updating the policy, and we've actually already done that. We're about to redistribute it.
Great.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Anything else? Could I have a motion to receive the report? A motion by Mr. Mahan. Have a second? Seconded by Ms. Rowe. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much for your for the report, and thank you very much for all the work on this. So with my colleagues' indulgence, we also have quite a few other folks who are joining Ms. Malloy in the training. I'm going to jump ahead to number 12 first, which is the Rainbow Commission appointments. And I know there are quite a few folks. Anyone who has the agenda, I'm going to call you up to the mic just to briefly introduce yourself to us and why you want to serve. You'll recall the Rainbow Pride Commission was adopted by town meeting last year as a vehicle to advance the interests and protections for the LGBTQIA+ community here in Arlington. The first individual who's been nominated is Mel Goldsipe. I do understand that Ms. Goldsipe has a conflict and is unable to be with us this evening. I know the board knows Mel pretty well from her work on Human Rights Commission. With your indulgence, when we get to appointments, I'd like to ask that we appoint her contingent upon asking her to come in if we feel that's necessary. Next, we have Bill Gardner.
Good evening. I'm Bill Gardner. I've been very involved as the vice chair of the Mystic LGBTQ Youth Support Network. We've been working for the last 3 or 4 years supporting young people in Arlington and neighboring communities, running programs down at the Arlington Center for the Arts on Friday evenings to support them, and engaging with them in many different ways to provide support and nurture for their community. And through the process of engaging with them, we've got a lot of interaction with people in our community around the broader needs of BGLTQ people in Arlington, which has been very important for us. And I think it's part of an extension of our work to come into participation in the Rainbow Commission. So I'm really excited to have this opportunity to participate on the commission and to bring my 50 years of experience working in different communities across the country in support of the rights of the BGLTQ community.
Thank you very much. My colleagues. Thank you very much, Bill. Thank you. Next, Helene Newberg. Excuse me. You can pull it down.
Good evening. I'm Helene Newberg. I've been a resident of Arlington since 1995. My partner and I have been married legally since 2004, but we moved in together in 95 and adopted a daughter in 98. She's now a sophomore in college, doing great. My experience in the town has been nothing but positive. Our daughter, Michaela, went through the Arlington Public Schools, was a varsity softball player, quite a famous varsity softball player, and our experience was amazing. So I am seeking to serve on the Rainbow Commission to share my experience, my passion for diversity, and to make sure that the resources that we know about and can find and can work with other, the handful of other Rainbow Commissions across the country are made available to everybody in town to connect folks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jacqueline Dembro.
Hi, how are you? So I've only lived in Arlington for about a year. I moved here like right after college. I am obviously super young, and I know how important it would have been to me right before I came out to have outreach, and I would like to provide the same amount of outreach to people in high school or at the middle school, and I also think that this would be a really great opportunity for me to get involved with the community. I think it would be a great start for me, and I'm really excited to see where we take things.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Brooks Harrelson.
Good evening, and thank you. I'm Brooks Harrelson. Gosh, I guess the most important thing is I've been part of the diversity task group for about 4 years now. I'm also part of an international men's organization called the Mankind Project. And as part of that, we're very oriented towards diversity and inclusion. We put on trainings for men specifically around targeted individuals. I've been through 3 bystander trainings, an advanced multicultural leadership training, and I'm part of the leader organization for the Mankind Project, and as such I'm a leader trainer on what we call gateway trainings, which are 90% GBTQ men and 90% GBTQ staff. I was one of the cisgendered hetero staff on that training. We teach emotional intelligence. We teach integrity and achievement to men and how to get beyond themselves and how to create a safe environment for all targeted kinds of individuals. So I've been working in this area of target and discrimination for a number of years now, and I think that this is a perfect opportunity that I'm just thrilled to pieces that the town has decided to create this commission, and I want to be part of it.
Thank you very much. And Lisa Krinsky.
Hello, good evening. I'm Lisa Krinsky. I just did the math quickly, a resident for 30 years of Arlington. I am also the mother of a Dallin first grader. And my day job is that I'm the director of the LGBT Aging Project at Fenway Community Health. And in that position, I spend a lot of time doing LGBT cultural competency training with elder services across the state. I've done so with Susan Karp and the folks at the Council on Aging here. And I'm excited to do some of this work in my own home community because I spend a lot of time doing it elsewhere. So I think that it's important to promote LGBT inclusion throughout Arlington.
Thank you very much. Great. Could I have a motion to?
Move approval?
I have a motion by Ms. Mahan, second by Ms. Rowe. I just want to say thank you very much to everybody for stepping up. This is a brand-new commission, and I'm going to, okay, I will recognize.
I think you're probably about to say what I was going to, so, but in particular, I was going to talk about how, like, we create a new commission, and then we get so many obviously qualified, people with such expertise. And I think that, we say it when we do appointments very often, but we'll say it again. Thank you all. And, the town, you are what makes the town work, and we really appreciate you putting your expertise to work to make the town a better place.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn.
Mr. Chairman, do we have a selectman liaison to this group?
We do not, but I don't see why we could not.
I'm
Are you volunteering?
I am.
I move Mr. Dunn be the liaison for the Board of Selectmen.
Second.
Okay, excellent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Did you have something, Ms.?
No, you just hadn't seen him.
Oh,
Did we
I said
vote the appointment?
we did not vote the appointments yet. I was just saying a few words. I actually was going to add one more thing to it, though. I think one thing that we're very proud of here is that the Human Rights Campaign actually canvasses communities across the country every year, just to gauge where our policies, where our practices of our community are, how welcoming our community is to the LGBTQ community. And we came very close to a perfect score this year, and we just barely missed it. I'm looking forward to the commission helping to bring us across the line so that we can celebrate a perfect score. I know that the survey just went out this year, so this week, I believe. Today, I think it came in today. So we'll be looking for your assistance actually as we respond to that to put us across the line. So with no further ado, there is a motion by Ms. Mahan, seconded by Ms. Rowe. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? It is unanimous. Congratulations to our new commissioners. I know you have another training that you're trying to run off to right now, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I recognize we have a lot of folks here on CDBG. We know that those are slightly longer presentations, so with the indulgence of those who are here on CDBG and the indulgence of my colleagues, I want to quickly go through the other appointments so that, because those are fairly quick matters of business. Then I'll just go right to 13, which is the Surveillance Study Committee. This actually sprang out of a warrant article proposal by Mr. Revelak, had brought it to our attention, who was concerned about some public surveillance technology and the deployment of it. After this board discussed it, we did forward the proposal to town meeting with a recommendation of no action, and instead opted to create the study committee on our own. And I know the manager has been interviewing a lot of qualified folks on this. We delegated to him to screen candidates for us, and he has brought forward quite a number of qualified candidates. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
Just one brief piece. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the original study committee roster or membership called for 4 general citizens and a representative of the Human Rights Commission. So you see that Mr. Horowitz is here as the Human Rights Commission representative, but you'll also see that there's 6 general citizens here. I'm asking tonight for the board's indulgence to appoint 6 versus the 4, just based on this is not really going to be a standing committee. It's a task-oriented committee. I think having as much expertise and citizen input at the table is only of benefit to the group.
Okay, excellent. I think if we vote to appoint, I think it will take effect. So going to go through the same routine. If you could just, as I call your name, just come up and just say a couple words about yourself and why you're interested in serving on the Surveillance Study Committee. Douglas Funkhauser.
Evening. I'm a resident of Arlington since 1984. I've raised 3 girls through the school system. I recently retired from Harvard University, where I worked in finance, financial administration, and on a variety of policy issues. And having recently retired, I thought I could make a contribution basically to this committee, and feel like I could make a good assessment, work with the committee on technology evaluation. And I don't have any particular expertise in surveillance, and I suspect that's a fairly rare trait to find. So, but anyway, I'm looking forward to it.
Great, thank you very much. John Gurish.
Hi, I'm John Gersh. You've seen me around town meeting, but by day, for the last 35 years, I've been a software engineer with a strong interest in privacy issues. I'm a member of the Electronic Frontier Foundation. I have kept up to date with some of the technologies. I am proud that Arlington is joining the roster of towns, municipalities around the country that are forming committees like this, and I would be proud to help study it, and I don't even know what that means entirely yet. So that's
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Surveil the surveillance, I think that's what it means. Christina Hildebeitel, and I hope I did not butcher your name. Is Christina here?
Let's see her.
Okay, so we'll put a hold on that appointment pending her appearance. Ian Pilarchik.
Hi, thank you. You pronounced my name impeccably. I'm very impressed. Ian Pilarchik. I've been a resident here in Arlington since 2010. I have twin girls who are now in kindergarten, and that gives me just a iota more of free time than I had before. And I thought it'd be a good time to get involved a little bit. I work and teach at Boston University School of Law, and one of the things that always interests me are issues related to social justice and human rights and civil liberties, and the way in which you have to weigh competing issues and imperatives and analyze their pros and cons. And that's part of why I found this intellectually interesting, and I hope that I can contribute meaningfully to the study in whatever way possible. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Stephen Rivolac.
Hello, Stephen Revelack, 111 Sunnyside Avenue. As Mr. Crowe mentioned, I put forth the idea to form this committee about a year ago, mainly because I was interested in, because I noticed the deployment of surveillance cameras in certain areas of town, and was interested in what policies were in place and what policies might be appropriate. So I'm excited that this is something that we'll get a chance to examine and hopefully make some recommendations on. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Mark Streitfeld.
Excuse me.
Hello. I've been in town, I don't know, somewhere between 25 and 30, well, actually, more 30 to 35 years. I have long been concerned with data collection and surveillance, both private and public sector. And at the same time, I also recognize that cameras can play a useful role in terms of deterring crime, or at least figuring out, catching people who commit them. And it interests me to be able to play a role in helping shape town policies and find a way to protect civil liberties, and at the same time use the cameras effectively to stop or to catch crimes as they occur.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gary Horowitz.
Hello, I'm Gary Horowitz. I'm with the Arlington Human Rights Commission. I've been a commissioner, I think, about 8 years. Surveillance is becoming a bigger issue these days. Disenfranchised communities feel like they're being surveilled more. So actually, the American Civil Liberties Union came up with a community control over police surveillance program, and they have a bunch of guidelines. Somerville has adopted it, Cambridge has adopted it. I thought it would be a good starting point for us when we start to meet, so if you want, I can give you that, but that's all. Just want to introduce myself, say hello, and that's it.
Thank you very much for stepping up again. Thank you all. With that, I'll accept a motion to appoint all of the applicants with the exception of Ms. Hilda Beidel, whom will request appear at a future board meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Dunn, seconded by Ms. Rowe. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for volunteering your time and your service to the town. I'm going to jump back. I'm going to stay on appointments here and just ask the indulgence of those who are here on CDBG. Arlington Committee on Tourism and Economic Development. Stephen Polterzitsky, term to expire 2/28/2021.
Hello, I'm Steve Polterzitsky. I've been a resident of Arlington for 28 years. I'm a local real estate agent, and for many years I worked as a management consultant and as a lawyer. I'm very interested in the arts. I'm a practicing artist. I'm a member of the Town Commission on Arts and Culture and also a board member of the Arlington Center for the Arts. And as such, I'm looking forward to having a role in promoting the town as a cultural destination for tourism and in helping the arts become more of an economic engine than they currently are, and in more generally promoting tourism and economic development. So, looking forward to it.
Great, thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
so much.
Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, great, thank you. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Rowe.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Mahan. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Great. Congratulations. Thank you for stepping up. And Board of Youth Services, Karen Bishop, term to expire 1/31/2021. Hi.
Follow there. Hi, I'm Karen Bishop. I've been in town 24 years now. My 3 children have either graduated from AHS or one is still at AHS. I've coached baseball and softball for 15 years in town, and professionally, I've been at the Learning Center for the Deaf for 28 years, running their residential treatment program. So I felt like this was a good match, and it's time to give back to Arlington.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Dunn. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Rowe. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much for volunteering and congratulations. Very important board. Thank you. Is there, moving back on the agenda, is there anyone here on the consent agenda before we move into CDBG, which would be either the, well, not the minutes, but reappointments, Patriots Day? Yeah, here are pages. Okay, so we'll do the consent agenda quickly and then we'll move into CDBG. Okay. So the consent agenda, usually we have limited discussion. We have everything is taken on one vote. So we have minutes of the meeting, February 5th, 2018, February 12th, 2018, reappointments, terms to expire, 1/31/2021, Commission on Disabilities, Cynthia DeAngelis, Constable, Roland Demers. Patriots Day Committee events, April 15, 2018, 54th Annual Patriots Day Fun Run at 8:45 a.m. along Massachusetts Avenue. Monotony reenactment at 12 noon at the Jason Russell House. Patriots Day Parade at 2 p.m. Christine Bongiorno, Patriots Day Parade Committee Chair, Director of Health and Human Services. I think Mr. Bowes is representing. Request a special one-day beer and wine license 3/3/18 at Masonic Hall for Elizabeth Warren campaign fundraiser. Colleen Coffey, Brian Rarick, Elizabeth Warren Action Fund, and request special one-day all-alcohol license 3/24/18 at Arlington Catholic High School gym for annual quiz night. Erin Simmons, Assistant Director for Alumni Relations, ACHS. Is there anyone here wishing to speak to any of the consent agenda items? Patriots Day? Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Bob Bowes. I come before you tonight as a member of the Arlington Patriots Day Parade Committee, and we seek your permission and approval for a full day of fun events on Sunday, April 15th. The day begins with the Arlington Boys and Girls Club annual road race at 8:45.
We move to the Jason Russell House at noontime for a reenactment of the events of April 19, 1775. And then at 2 p.m., the parade begins at the corner of Forest Street and Mass Avenue, moving to East Arlington. I've checked with the weather forecaster. It's going to be a stellar day. I hope you can all make it.
Old Farmer's Almanac. Excellent. Thank you very much. Do anybody call it? Yeah, Ms. Rowe.
Are you going to put your wonderful bunting up? The bunting?
Yes, of course. Yes, of
Good.
course, yeah.
Because it really makes the town look very festive.
Yeah, that's been a nice initiative. It's been maybe 5 years now, and many businesses participate. It's great. Thank you for mentioning that.
Yes, thank you very much. Anything else on that? Well, thank you very much for all the work to bring the parade back. I know it's been we have a motion by Ms. Mahan. Is the second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Dunn. Is there anybody else here to speak on any of those, either the reappointments or the license requests? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? It is passed unanimously. And now we move on to the main event. The CDBG public hearings. I spoke to Ms. Wayman, and we have 2 items on the agenda. We have the CDBG performance update for program year 2017 to 2018, and the CDBG requests for FY 2018 to 2019 funding. I know we have with Ms. Wayman, who's our CDBG administrator from the Planning and Community Development Department, and we also have many of the current year's recipients as well as the applicants for next year. After speaking with Ms. Wayman, I'd like to, with the board's indulgence, handle these as one item so that Ms. Wayman and any of the other recipients or applicants can speak both to this year and next year so they don't have to pop up and down twice. Before I do that, I just want to make sure that our 2 representatives on the board, Mr. Dunn and Ms. Rowe, are our representatives of the CDBG subcommittee. Was there any preface that you would like to add to this? Or?
No.
No, okay, great. Ms. Wayman, please.
Thank you very much. So good evening, members of the board. As you said, my name is Julie Wayman. I'm the CDBG administrator for the town. Tonight, presenting 2 items to you. The first is the mid-year report for the 2017-2018 CDBG grant year, and the second are the applications for 2018-2019. So you'll notice in your mid-year reports that subrecipients are again doing great work. This year's funding is covering everything from sports and summer programming scholarships, ADA compliant sidewalk ramps, transportation for elderly along with adult day health services, Operation Success and the Homework Help Program, as well as ongoing efforts for creating affordable housing here in town. I'm also happy to report that there's been real progress at the Life and Skills building that's being constructed at Menominee Manor. This is a long-funded CDBG project. Funding started in 2013, and the town has invested over $500,000. So it's really exciting to see the progress happening there right now. The project is has the construction started this past summer and is expected to be completed this fall. This is also going to be the site of this year's Community Development Week celebration. So the morning of Tuesday, April 3rd, we're going to be doing a walking tour of Menominee Manor, and we're actually going to visit 3 Community Development Block Grant funded projects. The Operation Success, the Menominee Manor Homework Program, as well as the mini food pantry that is funded from Food Link, and the construction site of the Life and Skills building. So, and the executive director, John Griffin, has agreed to join us to tell us a little bit more about the project. So I would like to invite everyone to join us that morning, if anyone is interested. And lastly, in your reports, you'll see that about half of our subrecipients have reached the goals that they had outlined in their initial applications, and the other half are on their way. Secondly, I'd like to present the 2018-2019 applications for this upcoming grant year. On January 31st, we received 22 funding requests from 15 organizations and town departments for a total of $1,580,000. Applicants this year are identical to last with 2 exceptions. The conservation agent has applied on behalf of the Conservation Commission and the Department of Planning and Community Development for a ADA-compliant trail at Spy Pond, which is part of a larger Spy Pond project. And FoodLink is applying this year for funding to help purchase land on which to build a new facility. This year, we expect to have access to $1,442,000 in CDBG funding. This is comprised of $1,019,000 in CDBG funding, about $60,000 in program income, and $363,000 in reprogrammed funds, about which you received a communication in late 2017. We plan for the CDBG subcommittee to meet the mornings of March 1st and March 7th to review these applications, and then I will come back on March 19th, to present our recommendations. So I'd like to thank you so much for your time, and lastly, just ask if you wouldn't mind voting to refer these applications to the CDBG subcommittee. These are the applications we received on January 31st, and the subcommittee plans to review and make a recommendation to the board.
Could I have a motion and a vote on that action, and then we'll hear from
So moved.
Yep. Moved by Ms. Mahan.
Second.
Second by Mr. Dunn. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay, the referral's been made.
Thank you. Great.
Thank you very much.
No problem. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'd love to turn the floor over to our subrecipients.
Anyone have any questions, Ms. Wayman? Okay, so I'd like to just invite anyone who is a grant recipient either this year or is an applicant for the coming year, just feel free to step up to the mic one by one and just identify yourself. Sure, Susan, just start it off.
One of those hard chairs.
Yeah, I know.
I'm Susan Carp. I'm the Executive Director of the Council on Aging, and the Council on Aging is a division of Health and Human Services. We have been very fortunate to have received, for a number of years, 3 different CDBG fundings, and I'm going to start from the lowest, and we'll work our way up to the highest. The Adult Day Health Services, we have a $4,000 grant that we have received. I have applied again. I would be remiss in my duties if I didn't ask for more. I understand the pie is only so large. We have been able to reach about 15 families at a scholarship of $300 a year. So what that means, that's 3.5 days a year of either respite services or adult day health, which is programs designed for those that have cognitive impairment or neurological some issues. So it's with great pride that we can do it. We have been partnering with Cooperative Elder Services, which is the only Arlington-based adult day health. What we've done in the last year, we've also made sure that the partnership that I have through ACMi, through the Living Out Loud program that we produce weekly, that we have done some educational programs on adult day health. Certainly our staff refers in, but the scholarships really are generated through the social work staff right at Cooperative Elder Services. We also have a caregiver support group, so we make that available to anybody that's participating. It's for free. It's run by Lori August, who is our most senior social worker on staff. And last year, I can report that we've had very good response to our Memory Cafe. So memory cafes are something that are through the Commonwealth. They're growing in nature. They are programs designed for the caregiver and one that is experiencing cognitive decline. So in Arlington, we probably have about 14 within about 6 miles of Arlington. And I partnered with Brightview because I don't have the depth of budget that would cover that, and my partnership with Brightview is probably close to $10,000 a year. So we hosted over to Brightview. It's a lovely venue, parking, and certainly all the programming costs are borne by Brightview, but those programs are designed really very special in a safe and caring and supportive environment for the caregivers and the one that has experienced cognitive decline. So with Adult Day Health, we've really been able to expand and build on whatever things that we can. Certainly I anticipate being able to use some funds from the Arlington for All Ages 5K race to possibly throw in maybe an extra $100. I can't do $300 per, because that just, I made $17,000, so I've got to spread that around just like CDBG, right? But I'm hoping to be able to offer those families. We also do take the time to connect those individuals with fuel assistance, SNAP, and any other social service that's available. So that's our Adult Day Health. Moving on to our Transportation Enterprise Fund. So, as you know, the Transportation Department in the Council on Aging is an enterprise fund. Therefore, we must be self-supporting, and we throw our shoulders back and give it a good whirl. Certainly, without the funding that we receive through CDBG, we could not offer not only the COA van. We use the dial-a-ride taxi as a means of providing transportation for our seniors 6 days a week versus what our van runs 4 days a week. Anywhere in Arlington. And then we take great pride in our medical escort program. So that falls in transportation. That also falls into volunteer, which I'll speak in a moment. Annually, we do about 8,000 or 9,000 one-way rides. It is a very, very busy and much-needed department. When it's not working, it brings us to our knees. It brings us to our knees because it takes 5 people to fix a problem and to get that senior to where they need to be. You know, grants in transportation, they're really few and far between because we need to have them for ongoing kinds of things. It's very difficult to be fun and creative in transportation. Dan, last year you had asked me about rideshare. What rideshare poses some interesting challenges for the population that I serve, not necessarily the 60-year-olds, but maybe sometimes the older of our group. You need to have a smartphone. You need to have a credit card to be able to tie to that. That isn't something that we can see across the board. In October, I went to a conference, and Uber was there. Because even though we hear, oh, everybody's running all these pilot programs, I think somebody's just like duplicating the same story because there aren't that many pilot programs for Ubers or for Lyfts. I mean, they're out there. Uber presented something very interesting, that they partner with MBTA. So I raised my hand, and I'm like, well, if you can partner with MBTA, why can't you do COAs? They're like, well, we can. It's called Uber Connect. So I was really, really excited. Discussion ensued. At the time, and this is not a detraction, so I'm making this statement publicly. I know I'm on cable. We were told in the conference by the Uber representative that they do not check the driving records of the drivers. Now, this was back in October. So amongst the COA network, my colleagues, and trying to figure out transportation, because it's not just Arlington that's struggling, it's everybody. I'm the only one that's enterprise, but going forward, I have a hard time with that. Someone recently told me, as recent as the first part of January, that no, they've changed their policy. And I'm going to this length just to let you know that I heard what you said, and I've been following up trying to figure out ways. Transportation's always on my mind, because my job is to keep people moving to reduce isolation. I don't have a good plan with that. I do want to experiment, though, whether it's with Uber. If Uber's changed their rules or if Lyft works out, I'd love to try a pilot program, potentially using some of the CDBG money, but more importantly, use the race money. I mean, we became a fundraiser, so let's put that money out there and see if it works. So that's my transportation. We certainly have a very active program, and I'm very grateful for the funds. As I said, if we didn't have them, our seniors would be stuck at home, and they would be calling 911 to get from one place to the other. So I do want to say thank you on that. As we move forward to the volunteer coordinator. So your packages will reflect something that says volunteer coordinator, which is a salaried position in the Council on Aging, but it is also, it's volunteer coordinator, but transportation coordinator. So you have two distinct skill sets rolled into one position. And I bring that to your point because lots of challenges. So it's a 28-hour-a-week position up against a 35-hour work week. So whatever isn't funded, the rest of us, including volunteers, are supporting the program. So we, speaking of volunteers, we have about 230 on an annual basis. What do our volunteers do? Well, I use 134 volunteers to deliver Thanksgiving meals on Thanksgiving morning to seniors who are considered either frail or isolated and need some social interaction. I use 50 volunteers to deliver 100 holiday bags to seniors that are food challenged. So for example, SNAP. SNAP doesn't cover toiletries. So these bags this year, instead of fun little things, had things that SNAP doesn't cover. So we were able to deliver it. These are big numbers to deliver to the individuals that we serve. I've partnered with Greater Boston Food Bank. So we are able to provide 75 seniors free groceries once a month. That requires volunteers to do that. Because that program's been successful, we've just completed a year. I've been given permission by Greater Boston Food Bank to open it up to another 75. So we're getting there with our volunteers. They spend over 8,000 or 9,000 hours per year. So if you just gave them minimum wage, it's almost twice the amount of money that I'm requesting. So I'm trying to explain that it's a good bang for your buck. We reach so many people through our volunteers. They do everything from answering phones to doing data input and financial analysis on some of the grant stuff that we do. Our retirees in Arlington are incredible. And so therefore, you know, this position has got really to stay in place. Not to say that it's going to go away, but it encourages civic engagement. It reduces any money that I'm going to be asking for from Adam in terms of, you know, the budgets. So I don't know if you have any questions.
Great, thank you very much.
Afraid to ask?
Before I open for questions, I do want to note on
Certainly not afraid.
on the volunteer coordinator and transportation coordinator, I think it's appropriate to acknowledge that just a week and a half ago, Bill Murphy, who served for
15 years
in that position, retired.
Yep.
And it's a big loss to us all. He was a great guy, and he really,
Really
he put his
great.
heart and soul into making this program a success.
Right.
So are there any questions? Mr. Dunn?
Thank you for the update on the rideshare stuff. I'm really glad that you're looking into it. And
I wish I had a better answer, though.
well, I'd say like the fact that you're keeping poking at it, I think, is the right answer, because like that environment continues to change, and if you continue to look at it, hopefully it'll turn in a direction that's helpful to us. And you know, really, the thing that I'm just like, it's very good to hear that you're doing that kind of active search, because that's exactly what I'm asking for, and I really appreciate it.
Well, you're welcome. I just, as I said, I wish I had a better answer then.
Any of my other colleagues have any questions, comments? Thank you very much, Ms.
Thank
Gabbard.
you.
Thank you
Really
to the whole
appreciate it.
council for your work on this. Okay, who would like to speak next?
We will.
All right.
Oh, they're the
Good to see you again. Yeah.
Nice to see you too. Thank you for having us. Oh, sorry. Okay. My name is Janet McGuire, Peggy Regan. We're lifelong residents of Arlington, teachers in Arlington, and we are representing Operation Success. Operation Success is now going into its 19th year of volunteer work. We service the students and young residents of Monotony Manor from middle school all the way through college. This year we have between 20 to 25 students that are enrolled. It varies each night how many come, because it's on a total volunteer basis, but we're pretty packed. We also are having a girls' night and a boys' night coming up. Last year we did the white ribbon for the boys' night, so that was great. This year I think one of the volunteers wants to have a cooking night for the girls, and the boys are deciding what they would like to do. We try to get them out to cultural events at least one a year, and Dee Savioli is also organizing giving back from the students as well. And we really rely on the CDBG grant. We asked for $6,000, and it's spent by the end of the year. It goes for our computers. Thank goodness we have Dan Sheehan, who also volunteers for us on a minute's notice. Just last week, the computers went down at night, and he was there the following morning to help us out. So thank you. We really appreciate when you grant us this money. And Peggy would like to talk about the volunteers.
I just want to say we've been in operation for 19 years. We run September through June, 4 nights a week from 7 to 8:30, and obviously Jan and I couldn't do that by ourselves. Maybe the first week or two we did. But we have volunteers from the community, and we have amazing teachers from Otterson Middle School who work all day and then come down and help at night. So we obviously couldn't do it without them, so we just want to acknowledge that it wouldn't be a success if it wasn't for those people. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for all your
Thank you.
work. Thank you. I'd like to, Ms. Hallett.
Good evening. I'm Pam Hallett with the Housing Corporation of Arlington, and I wanted to say that you've been very generous to us in the last number of years, and I wanted to report that we had been invited in for our Downing Square Broadway initiative, all 48 units, to the state for them to actually review the application. So keep all your fingers and toes crossed. We should hear if they fund it completely July or August when they get around to doing their political review. But we're very excited about that. It's a real possibility this year, and if not this year, certainly next year, but we're keeping our fingers crossed for this year. So I wanted to say thank you all for your great support of all of the pre-development work that we've been doing over the last several years. And also this year, we're just asking for a couple of $100,000 for ongoing capital improvements. We've been doing regular capital improvements to our current portfolio, starting in, I think it was 2013, 2014. And each year, we take a few more units and rehab them and do outside work and just get them up to snuff, looking better. So I just wanted to say thank you all for your generous support.
Thank you for all your work on this. Ms. Urban.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Urban. I'm from Fidelity House, and I too want to thank you for the support for our program. I just want to remind everyone, it's a program that's definitely near and dear to my heart, and it's a very important program in Fidelity House, but it honestly can't run the way it is without your support. But what we do is we threefold do something. We try to make sure that there's stability and opportunity for the kids that live down in Menominee Manor and make it community-wide, meaning that they're going to join our day camp and get new experiences. We go down, pick them up in the morning in a bus. Day camp goes for 8 weeks. We try to make sure there are at least 2 weeks of day camp, if not more. And day camp is up at Minuteman in Lexington, so they're getting swimming lessons, and it's just a totally different world for them, which is great. For anyone that comes to camp, these days especially, just because it's so technical and just with themselves, that when they're with friends and out and about and out in nature, it's great. So that's one part of the program. And then we also offer, during the week, I go down and then bring them back to Fidelity House. They get free memberships and free scholarships for programs during the school year. And, it's a variety of programs depending on what their interests are. And then we also do an on-site program, which is a little trickier right now with all the construction down there. But, it's important that we're visible in all aspects so that we meet the needs of the different programs that might pique their interest or bring them to join the greater community and maybe find new horizons. So I did ask for $16,000. Hopefully, you guys have been very generous, so hopefully we can come near that. And also, while I'm up here, we do the Jobs program. We do request $5,000 towards that so that we can make sure the high schoolers that are from families that maybe wouldn't come looking for the job right away or have the opportunity to always have a job, and they're going to walk out of there with lifelong skills that they're going to use themselves, but it's also, they have been invaluable. They even work in the summer and then stay during the school year, and we can't really survive without their help, so it's awesome. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dunn.
It refreshed my memory about the coordination between the Boys and Girls Club, jobs, and what you do.
It used to be that there was one coordinator, and then he met or she, whoever was the coordinator, kind of met the salary expectations of they weren't receiving tons of money elsewhere, and some of the funds went towards that. And then they coordinated not just with the Arlington Boys and Girls Club, but with us, and then also the rec. And then we realized that we could use that money just for the kids, rather than using some of that money to funnel towards a staff person. So each program took their responsibility for the kids that, it's one same registration form. It's all CDBG required on the back about information. But, and they have the choice of working at the Boys and Girls Club or at Fidelity House. And I think we pretty much all ask for the same amount, just to make sure that it's really going to the kids program and, the staff that are working.
And just tell me, so like, if someone wants to apply, do they apply to like Fidelity House or to Boys and Girls Club, or do they just apply to the program and then you sort it out?
Like they could come in Fidelity House and they apply for us if they're there, and they could go into the Boys and Girls Club and apply for there. There is a lot of give and take. Like, if the Boys and Girls Club realized they didn't have, they would check with us and we would check with them. I mean, there is a lot of discussions and collaboration. It's not like, oh, we've got our money and you've got yours. So,
thank you.
No problem.
I noticed in some of the information I got that not all the children that you work with are from Arlington, but some come and stay with relatives?
It's the jobs.
Yeah.
There was actually just one, and
just one.
they were
Okay.
from Arlington. Their family had moved locally, but lived with the grandmother who's still in Arlington during the summer.
I was just curious.
And to be honest with you, they're here all the time. And it's when you're in Arlington, you love Arlington. It's part of your history.
Great.
So,
Thank you.
no problem.
Thank you very much. Thank
Yeah.
you for all your work.
Excuse me. Hi, I'm Julie Kremer, co-founder of FoodLink. FoodLink, we're going to explain a little about what we do, and then at the end, why we're asking for the money. FoodLink operates 7 days a week to collect, sort, and then distribute fresh, nutritious food to nonprofit organizations providing services to people in need and residents in low-income housing facilities. By delivering food directly to the places where people live, congregate, learn, and play, the accessibility barrier to obtain fresh food is removed. We source the food through donations of surplus food from places like Trader Joe's, Whole Foods, Wegmans, cafes, bakeries, and farms. So who do we serve in Arlington? People in these places. 4 facilities managed by the Arlington Housing Authority: the Arlington Food Pantry, Arlington Eats, Thompson School Snack Program, Council on Aging, the Arlington Senior Center, Young Adult Vocational Program, STEPS Young Adult Resource Center, Arlington Boys and Girls Club, Fidelity House, and Jermaine Lawrence. And this translates into providing food for over 5,000 unique individuals in Arlington, of whom 63% fall into one of the CDBG qualifying categories of low to moderate limited clientele.
I'm Deanne DuPont. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we provide here in Arlington. So in 2018, we'll be providing over 300,000 pounds of fresh produce, including fruits and vegetables, meat, dairy, and bread, and to those organizations that Julie just mentioned. And what that equates to, the reason why I brought this, is that equates to over 14,000 boxes of fresh food that we deliver to Arlington programs. And from that food, these individuals that are ultimate recipients can prepare 250,000 meals. And our deliveries are customized to what the organizations need. So an example is during school vacation weeks, Arlington Eats and the Arlington Boys and Girls Club receives a significantly larger amount of food than what we would normally provide on regular weeks. So we constantly adjust for the needs of our recipient agencies. And how do we accomplish this? Well, we have a very dedicated team of about 170 volunteers and 2 staff. About 60% of the volunteers come from Arlington or reside in Arlington. And our volunteers and staff use the FoodLink van and their personal vehicles to transport the food. So we've told you a bit about who we serve here in Arlington, what we provide, and how we accomplish this. And I'm going to talk about a little bit about what you've funded in the past and what our need is. So in the past, we've received funding to provide food to the Drake Village, Menominee Manor, Cusack Terrace, and Chestnut Manor. So those are 4 of the housing facilities managed by the Arlington Housing Authority. And so that has helped us to pay for our van and various other expenses. This year, our request is a bit different. You've heard from Pam Hallett about the building at Broadway. We've been operating out of that building, but as you can tell, it'll be demolished maybe as soon as next year. And so we need a new operating facility to continue to serve the clients that we have, our agencies, and provide them better services as well. So our request this year is we're asking for support to help us find a new location and move into that location. And we appreciate your past support, and we hope that you're able to support us in this need for this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Dunn.
Yeah. Could you just tell me a little bit more about what your facility search looks like? What are you thinking about, and what are your
Sure. Ideally, we've put together a spec sheet. So ideally, we feel we need at least 2,000 square feet. We want to be able to have 300 square feet of cold storage. Cold storage is a huge limiting factor for us right now. So sometimes, like one particular day, I'm going to go to the extreme, we received 1,000 pounds of frozen meat from Wegmans, and we do not have the facilities to store 1,000 pounds of meat. So we started calling all of our recipient agencies. Whereas if we had the cold storage, we could then save it and be very thoughtful about the distribution of it, as well as regular refrigeration. We could provide more services to the Arlington Food Pantry and others. We also need office space. Right now, our staff and us, when we meet, we try to reserve a room at the library, or we meet at a cafe, or we meet at my house. So we also want office facilities. So about 2,000 square feet, we hope to be able to purchase land and build something, or if there's an opportunity out there where we can have a long-term lease and renovate, we're open to various opportunities, and we have been pursuing opportunities. But we also welcome if anyone knows of opportunities as well.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the
welcome.
ongoing work. Thank you. Mr. Curran.
Good evening. My name is Derek Curran from the Arlington Boys and Girls Club. We're actually celebrating our 80th year this year serving the Arlington community, so we're very proud of that. Just want to share that with everyone. I'm here to talk about 2 separate programs. As Lisa mentioned, we have our Jobs program. Last year we received $5,000 for that program. We were able to give 8 jobs to teens, which put some much needed money in their pockets and their family's pocket. But it also, we also help provide some job training from just the initial filling out the application, from coming in and interviewing for the job, and just how to dress appropriately when you do that. It seems like a basic skill, but not everyone has that. Part of that job and that training is for them to work for us for 1 year and then go elsewhere to a grocery store, CVS, something like that. And for the most part, that happens. So, we're very proud of that. We're asking for $5,000 again this year to help us out with that. Our second program is our scholarship program. This past year, we received $14,500, which we generally use just during the summer months. The need is so great during those non-school hours where it's 2 parents are working, and the parents need us an affordable, safe, fun place for their kids to go during the day. So that money is used very quickly throughout the summer. The club typically spends another $5,000 to $10,000 that we receive through private donations to help with that, the need during the summer. Overall, that's probably about a quarter of the scholarships that we give away throughout the whole year. Some of that is, again, through private donations. Some of that the club just absorbs. This past year, we were able to give 35 different families scholarship money, which was just under 50 kids. This year, we're asking for a little more. We're asking for 20. I would think that would get us a lot closer to serving 50 families and potentially up to 70 kids that we'd be able to care for. So thank you for your time, and that's it.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Good, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. John Marshall, Director of Recreation. We're here for our annual request for scholarships. We appreciate your support in the past and appreciate you considering our request for this year moving forward. We offer over 200 programs to the community of Arlington. We have over 10,000 registrations throughout the year. In the past, we have, in fiscal year 16, we supported $22,000 of scholarships. In fiscal year 17, we supported $29,000 in scholarships. This year to date, we have supported $18,000 in scholarships. So the support we receive from CDBG greatly assists us in funding that need. One of our goals is to support everyone in the community, and this is a great help.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on the CDBG? Going once, going twice. So we did take the vote to refer all of the applications for the coming year to the subcommittee. Mr. Dunn.
Actually, I should have asked this earlier, but it didn't occur to me yet. Adam, last year at this time, we were worried. I think we'd seen Trump's budget, and it said zero for the CDBG, which obviously did not come to pass last year. Do we have any insight on, or perhaps about what we think we're going to get, how that's going to change?
Go for it.
Please.
So I have talked with a number of people who attended a national conference recently for both home and the community development block grant. And I think the general feeling is that Congress is the one who are really going to be addressing the budget, specifically CDBG and home. And I think the general consensus is that we shouldn't be concerned.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That's good.
Great. Thank you very much. At least through the
Yep.
expiration of this most recent budget deal that was reached in Washington, which I think goes for another 18 months. It's a long-term budget deal, so there's relative stability.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we have taken the vote to refer the application. I want to thank those who are left. I want to thank all of the applicants for their presentations and for all the hard work. This really is a social safety net, the CDBG. I mean, one thing that strikes me every single year when we hear the presentation is how much the different applicants cooperate with one another and in a complementary fashion. And that really is the definition of a net, isn't it? Trying to support one another in an interwoven fashion. There is always a challenge every year. I think everyone who goes through this process recognizes that we always have far more requests than we have estimated funding. 1.7 million in requests this year versus 1 million in estimated funding. And most of what we heard this evening, not all, but a lot of what we heard this evening was under the public services category, where we're limited to $167,883, and there probably like $17,000 more in requests. So I do not envy our two representatives on the CDBG subcommittee or the others who work on it, Ms. Wayman, Mr. Chapdelaine, and I think Ms. Wright's on that too, is she not? Correct. Yeah. Don't envy you that task, but we'll look forward to the results of your work when you bring it back to the full board. And with that, I don't know if we need any further motions for receipt, or I think we're all disposed. Thank you very much for all the work on this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, sure. We've thinned the herd a bit. We now move on to warrant article hearings, articles for review. The first is Article 6, Bylaw Amendment, Capital Planning Committee. Are you going to give us introductions on each of these, Mr. Heim, or do you want me to go straight to the proponents?
I'm certainly happy to, but I think for a number of these, it's probably wise to go directly to the source first.
Great. Mr. Leone.
Good evening, everybody. This is one of the articles that I put together with the Capital Planning Committee, Charlie Foskett and Brian Rearig. Brian and Charlie and I met in January when we were doing the new crop of appointments. What they came to realize with the Capital Planning Committee is now there's a lot of work, and it's almost too many for the four of them. And we had some really good appointments, potential appointments that we didn't want to lose. We wanted to capture them. So one of the thoughts we had was to increase the committee, the four moderator appointed, and now I believe Adam and Charlie spoke also. They wouldn't necessarily be appointed right away. It's as the committee would need additional folks, we could make the committee swell between 4 and 6 extra people, depending on the amount of work that's needed. So we would appoint them for 1, 2, or 3 years. That was the initial impetus, so we would just increase it up to 6. But the other part of it was all the Capital Planning Committee members now are appointed on a 3-year basis, and they all expire at the same time, and they all end at the same time. So what we want to do is kind of stagger them, get them on 1, 2, and 3-year schedule. So that would be the real impetus of getting the bylaw amended a little bit. It's the same as it was back in '86 when it was first written, so we're just going to kind of clean it up and provide for those two eventualities, the increase and to stagger the terms.
I think this is an excellent idea, John and Charlie and Brian, because I think there is an awful lot of work that they do.
Yes.
And they now have to also sort of oversee the Community Preservation Committee. So that's added to their work. I think this is a great idea, and if you had really good applicants, I think it's even better.
Right, and the whole committee is behind it as well. The Capital Planning Committee has discussed it, and they're all on board with the increase.
Is that a motion? That's a motion. Second.
There's a motion for favorable action, seconded by Ms. Rowe, seconded by Ms. Mahan. So I just have a question. So the Capital Planning Committee has actually voted in support of?
Yeah, they have. And I'll work with the committee and Attorney Heim to come up with some final language that's acceptable to the board as well.
Okay, do we have any further questions?
May I?
Yes, sir, Mr. Heim.
So I think that understanding a few more of the details, the draft vote that I put in front of you needs to be modified quite a bit. I do want to clarify something while we're here. Mr. Leone mentioned that we would have a flexible number, but I do think it's important for the purposes of the vote to know what the minimum number would be. So I'm assuming that based on what Mr. Leone would be, at least 4 and up to 6. Is that everybody's understanding?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay, it's favorable action. Article 7, bylaw amendment, town meeting warrant delivery.
Hi,
This was
back
you,
again,
Charles?
John Leone, moderator. So in meeting with the moderator associations, a few of our comparable communities, Brookline and Lexington, they were stunned that we actually send the warrant to every house in town. Lexington had an article similar to this last year that the town meeting decided not to go with, but Brookline hasn't sent it out to every house in town for a long time. I asked Ms.
Gorpelker, she could do a little research for me. I think for the special we just had, it cost us almost $2,000 to mail the warrant to every house. And on the regular town meeting, it runs us about $5,000 to have that advocate insert. I don't know how many people actually read it. I know that even if I go over to my folks' house, they just throw it in the trash with all the other ads that come. They don't even realize they get it. So my thought in bringing this was, we're moving town meeting to electronic distribution. I would like to do that with the warrant, but still make it available printed at the clerk's office, the selectman's office, and all the other town buildings as it was in the past. But eliminate that in-house delivery to everybody, and maybe just mail it out to the town meeting members so they have some idea that it's there. That was the thought process and the rationale. I'm meeting with the committee, the Town Meeting Procedure Committee on Wednesday to discuss this and also the other article that's going to be coming up. So we don't have a final vote for you, but that's where we're coming from on this one. Just kind of a save paper and money.
Mr. Kiro,
Yes,
I find this really curious. There was not as much of a directive as one would think there would be on something like this. The state's FAQ from the Secretary of State essentially says that towns have traditionally employed one of three methods or a combination of them. We do all three. For reasons that probably were rooted in something that made sense at the time.
Yeah.
Technically speaking, there's not even something specifically that says it has to be that you post in every school and municipal building, but I just want to let you know that technically speaking, we would be well within the law to say, okay, we're going to post these in all of our municipal buildings and every school building, and we're going to have a copy available online, and that would be sufficient. It would probably be sufficient, although it's not as clear as I would like it to be, to just say it's online, go find it. But there is no reason that we have to do all three of the things unless you think it's wise to do all three things and that it's good for the town for people to get a copy of it and it doesn't go in the recycling bin. I just want to let you know, I was really surprised that there was no specific requirement. In fact, some towns didn't outline their process and they had to let the Attorney General's office know what they do by a vote of town meeting that was less official. So
Yeah, that's what I found as well. It's just no direction from the state.
Yeah.
So one question, well, firstly, I want to say thank you for bringing this forward. You seem to be following the footsteps of Mr. Carmen, who was before us at our last meeting, just trying to drag us kicking and screaming into the 21st century. And,
I hate all that paper on town meeting floor.
I know. This was inserted at the request of the Procedures Committee, but it sounds like there still is some discussion.
Well, we've had unofficial meetings. You know, basically, I've called them up and talked to them, but not at the meeting we haven't had our posted meeting yet to discuss it. But in general, they're all in favor of individual discussions.
Okay.
That's not an official vote yet, so, I mean, we could come back after we had a little more in-depth article and something more for you to read. I would suggest it might be a better use.
Yeah, I'm wondering, I'm feeling like I might, personally, I might feel more comfortable hearing what the Procedures Committee has to say about, especially in light of this issue that Mr. Heim raised, that there's actually a choice of how many and which methods to use.
And actually something that would explain what the bylaw change is going to be and how it would work. Yes, of course.
Yeah, I think that, but Ms. Rowe?
I think it's a good idea to bring it to the town meeting floor. I think we would get a really good idea of what everybody thinks instead of just the decision of 4 people tonight or 5 people.
Right.
I think it's, we want to be as transparent as possible, but we also don't want to waste money, so I think it would be good. I think we should do favorable action, but we can get poor John to come back again, if you'd like.
Yeah, I'll come back.
Yeah, only because it's submitted by, if I may, Mr. Chairman, following the chairman's remarks, the chair's remarks, it's submitted by, their committee.
Right, the committee.
Yeah.
And what if, for some unknown reason, they have a different thing? I will tell you honestly, I'm on the fence about it, because if we're looking at a cost of $5,000 up to $7,000 a year,
It'll pay for our clickers.
I know, but there are, believe it or not, there's still
population out there that still haven't
Sure.
even really, I mean, my parents, you know, they haven't, and my parents really do pay attention to that, and I know some other people, I know when I've gotten calls as town meeting members, as a town meeting member, if you take out a incidental issue that all of a sudden is forefront and there's an organization behind it, when I've just gotten random calls as a town meeting member, it's been somebody who has seen the warrant, and it's something in particular to them. So I'm not saying it happens a lot, but maybe a year goes by that all the calls are generated by that specific issue and a group organizing behind it. But just about every year I get, 1 to 4 calls when people, sometimes it's, what is this thing I got in the Advocate or whatever, and then I explain it, but sometimes it's they want follow-up on that. So before I would cut loose to say 5,000 to 7,000, maybe town meeting has this conversation and they decide, well, let's think about it, and maybe in the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Well, yeah, throw it in their lap.
Yeah.
Definitely let town meeting decide.
Yeah, so if it's okay, Ms. Rowe, if we could.
Yeah, certainly.
Just move to table.
Yep.
It's a motion by Ms. Mahan, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Mr. Dunn.
I definitely support tabling. One thing, a couple thoughts, which don't reach a conclusion, is the warrant isn't necessarily the best tool we have to educate people about what we're going to talk about and what's going to happen.
Yeah.
The constant confusion between the warrant, between the motion, and so on and so forth. And so we're going to spend the money. Part of me is like, I'm wondering, well, is there a different document that makes, the warrant is what it is. It's very useful.
Yes, it's a warning, yeah.
Exactly, it is. And so, I don't know, like I said, wasn't sure, that wasn't a well-directed thought, I don't think. Adam, when the financial document, the annual financial information document.
The 4-page document.
Yeah. Do we put that in every household, or how do we do, is that mostly electronic, or how do we do that?
We try to get it in that same Advocate that the warrant goes in, so that it goes to every household.
And how do we pay for that? Is that out of
We pay it out of the printing town reports budget.
Okay.
But I agree what you're saying, and what I said, sometimes when I get calls, it's because residents get that warrant, and they're like, what is this?
Yeah,
And so
which is fair,
sometimes-
totally,
Yeah.
totally agree, okay.
Okay, so
Thank you.
maybe the committee could expand upon that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So we have a motion on the table, seconded by Ms. Mahan, seconded by Mr. Dunn, to table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Thank you very much for the work on that.
Mr.
Yeah,
Chair, may I take
sure.
a minute?
Sure.
I'd like to take a moment to thank our town employees, Joan Roman, Lawrence Schweitzer, Christine D. Francisco, Amy Quinn, Fran Reedy, and Alan Kowalski for their efforts in working with me to develop and continually refine the town meeting webpage and warrant article that we're getting online. They've been really instrumental in this. We've developed that from scratch, and every year they're getting better. They put a lot of effort in that is above and beyond their regular work, and I really want to just call out and give them a public thank you for all their hard work and efforts. It's been really helpful, and again, moving town meeting electronically, couldn't do it without them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you
Thanks
very
for
much. You might want to hang on for one of the upcoming warrant articles, too. Yeah, there's one more, yeah. Okay, Article 11, bylaw amendment, vacant storefront registry. Mr. Heim.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On behalf of Inspectional Services and our Economic Development Coordinator, this bylaw amendment is relatively straightforward. The vacant storefront registry has been a big success. Oh, I'm sorry, were you coming up to?
Yeah, so the one that
No, not yet. Excuse me.
So this is relatively straightforward. The vacant storefront registry has been exceeded everybody's wildest expectations. It's been terrific. I know that it received an award at the MMA. Ally Carter and Mike Byrne basically agree that there need to be some minor changes to it. One that allows for more time before people are put on the vacant storefront registry. And second, to clarify some of the processes a little bit in the ways that I've outlined in the draft vote that I've given to you for how and when the fee will be applied and how and when you can apply for a waiver. So there's really 2 straightforward changes in terms of what it takes to get on the vacant storefront registry would be expanded from 21 days vacant to 90 days vacant. And that's based in part on their experience with it, these town employees, and in part on feedback from the commercial land property owners. The second piece is, again, just a refinement and a little bit of more clarity in terms of when the annual registration fee is due and how we manage the...
Microphone.
Sorry. I'm taking notes on my computer so I can capture the comments of the selectmen, and that's why I haven't been speaking to the microphone. The second change is really oriented around making it a little bit easier and a little bit clearer for when your registration fee is due, as well as when your waiver would be applied for. And it's all to be said at the same time, a little bit more clearly in the bylaw, instead of on this sort of basis of when you become vacant, okay? So if anybody has any questions, I can answer, I think, the technical piece of it in terms of the motion, but I'll do my best with respect to what Ally and Mike had to say.
Any questions, Mr. Dunn?
I was just a little more curious about the 21 to 90.
Yeah. So my understanding is that there's a couple of things going on. One, from the perspective of managing it from our town employees. 21 days, I guess, is not a super long time to be able to rent out the property, and it's flooding them with, I guess, business that probably won't create the type of condition that people are concerned about. The second piece is, I think, from commercial landlords' perspectives, I think people have been turning properties a little bit faster, but that's a shorter time frame than the average amount of time it takes for you to advertise and fill a storefront.
Ms. Rowe?
I know because in East Arlington, all of a sudden we have a crop of vacant storefronts, and we're going to have another one too very soon, that I think that the 90 days makes sense for the landlord and the commercial property owner, because I think you need to give them as much time as possible, and I don't think 21 days makes sense.
I think the other piece of it I understand is that will also help to give folks a little bit of time in terms of, do they need a waiver? How would they apply for it? Is there public art available to go in that space? I don't know if folks have seen it, but there's been a couple of nice examples of public art going into storefront windows, which have been really lovely.
Great.
Okay. Anything further from my colleagues? Anyone else here to speak on this? Hearing none. Do I have a motion?
Recommend favorable action.
Moved by Mr. Dunn, seconded by Ms. Rowe. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you very much for your work on this. Thank you to Ms. Carter and Mr. Byrne. We now move on to the bylaw amendment, Arlington Commission on Arts and Culture. Ms. Marlon Curel.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Marlon Curiel. I'm co-chair of the Arlington Commission on Arts and Culture. I don't know if you've read I'm sure you have read the warrant, but what we're coming to you here about today is the fact that we are implementing a cultural plan, which we undertook last year, and part of that cultural plan had to do with the consolidation and coordination of all the various arts organizations in town, affectionately known as the alphabet soup of the arts. And so what we are doing in the process of doing this year is working with the Arlington Cultural Council and Arlington Public Art and the new Cultural District Managing Partnership to form one organization that will have a core committee and will have several subcommittees. One of them dealing with public art, one of them dealing with grants, one of them dealing with programs and festivals that currently doesn't fall under any existing committee now, except partly public art. But we'll be working with the Cultural District Managing Partnership, which includes the Arlington Center for the Arts and the Arlington Libraries, to form that Programs and Festivals Committee. There'll also be a Marketing and Evaluation Committee. Those are the proposed committees so far, and then there'll be committees sort of formed for specific reasons that will, not necessarily be permanent committees.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Mr. Heim.
If I just could add something, I think that what Ms. Marlon Curiel is proposing is something similar to the way in which the Vision 2020 committee was revised, to create a standing committee that sort of had a certain status and then had a little bit more fluidity with respect to the subcommittees. Is that a fair?
I would say so, too. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I've had some exposure to this, having worked with the working group on the cultural plan and met with, I think it was TDC was brought in to consult with us on the consolidation. So I attended a couple of those, and having, I think that my colleagues know I have a special interest in this area, and the number of times that I've had to, all of us have had to explain the difference between the Arlington Commission on Arts and Culture and the Arlington Cultural Council and Arlington Public Art, and what's the difference. I think pulling them under one umbrella makes a lot of sense, just for a matter of clarity, to remove potential redundancy and such. So I appreciate all of the work. I know the Planning and Community Development Department was very involved in trying to help us facilitate this discussion as well, so that we can kind of streamline these efforts. So
Yeah,
it's
could I
well
add
worth
something?
the effort.
Yeah, I'm definitely appreciative of that. The Arlington, we've been working very closely with the planning department, and they are also part of the Cultural District Managing Partnership. So I'm very excited about this endeavor because we will be completely aligned. I mean, part of the cultural plan was also to mirror and expand on some of the priorities in the master plan, and so we'll all be able to align our priorities also with the work of the town. So it's really exciting that we'll be all on the same page. The public will also get to know that through our website that we're developing right now, which will reflect all of the arts efforts in town and include artist resources and grant resources, and we'll have a calendar listings, and we'll have an inventory of public art, and we'll also list all the cultural assets we have in town and have a map of the cultural district. So it will be all in one place. So we're very excited to be coordinating that over the next year. One thing I wanted to mention that will be part of this warrant is that we went through a lot of soul searching about whether or not we were going to form a new organization with a new name and all that. But in the end, we decided that the commission has had a great track record, and we have received some grant money and have done a lot of things. And so we've decided it's important to remain the commission, also because of the importance of the body and for its coordination efforts in being the umbrella body so closely aligned with the town, that we want to remain the Arlington Commission on Arts and Culture, yet actually the little difference is that we want to be now the Arlington Commission for Arts and Culture, because we felt that was contained more of an advocacy feeling to it. So that's the small change. The other change that will come is some additional responsibilities and duties added to the bylaws to reflect the new charges of funding grants and creating programs and things like that for the town. Those, we don't have that exactly prepared yet. We need a follow-up meeting for that. We've had our heads in our website.
Move approval?
Motion to
I
approve.
think there's somebody in the
Oh,
audience.
is there someone else? Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you. Mr. Paluso, you wanted to speak to this? Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you.
How you doing? My name is Ted Paluso. I'm a town meeting member from Precinct 6, I guess, and I live on Massachusetts Avenue. This is a great idea. This town, and I have studied it now for 10 years, should be putting committees together. Now, I think your step here is fantastic. I've read the studies. I've talked to the people who are involved in it. I know the people who are involved in it. And I give you a perfect, for instance, this lady over here knows all about this. She knows more than I do. Okay, Clarissa. There are 64 National Historic Register places in the town of Arlington. More than Concord, more than Lexington. Scary, huh? And all I can tell you is this town has the opportunity to pull together these diverse committees that are all working on their own agendas and make it a consolidated effort. It's there. Now, believe it or not, I've attended a couple of their meetings, and I see it also as an economic development effort. It has tremendous economic development potential, in addition to the cultural and art. So all I'm saying is, put these committees together as best you can. Look for others at some time before my lifetime expires, hopefully. But when you do it, keep it active, fund it, have the people who are in this committee do things, get things done. I'm nuts about Uncle Sam Plaza. I spend my nights dreaming about Uncle Sam Plaza. And all I can tell you is that is a cultural location. So do it. And if you need any help any place along the line, I'm not looking to join any committees, but I want to tell you, if you need any help, I'm here to help, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Paluso. Thank you very much. Always good to see you. We have a motion by Ms. Mahan. Was there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Dunn, yes.
I think maybe I have a question for Stephanie, that is, it is a little bit awkward because I'm going to ask you to put words in other people's mouth. But do you feel like you're on the way to consensus about how this arrangement is going to work, or do you think that there's significant sticking points left about how it's going to work, or what's your thought on the process? And just so you know, one of the things I'm thinking about here is a timeline and town council time, and what these changes would look like.
Great question. Interestingly enough, I know I'm standing here alone today, but it's really because everybody's at other meetings.
Okay.
Also overcommitted. But yes, I would be standing here with members from all the various entities that I mentioned, and we are very much in a consensus about this consolidation.
Okay.
We definitely have records and meeting notes to show you that everybody is extremely happy about the opportunity to set priorities together, consolidate our budget, and really work together. And we are pretty close to a consensus in terms of the structure. We're still working on the makeup of the core committee and how many representatives and whether or not there should be outside people, but the ACC, APA, all these former members, people with different expertise will be represented, and then there will be need for additional skills, which we will assess at the time, and that's where our additional members may come from. So as far as an exact number, we will probably be also amending the number of commissioners, but I can't give you an exact number yet because we still need one more follow-up meeting, but or two, in terms of finalizing all these things, language and committee. But there is absolutely consensus.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And so, Doug, I guess one of the things I sometimes do, I don't know if I've ever done this here, but it's like I ask about blood pressure, and like, does this particular, like the amount of work that you've got left for this one, does this like make your blood pressure really high, or is it like lower on your list of things you're worried about, or?
I feel really good about it.
Okay, thank you.
What am I missing?
I think that to follow up, though, it sounds like we do need to have a good sense of the deadline to work back, like the last day that this board can take final votes for inclusion in our report to town meeting.
It's the 5th.
5th of
March.
5th of March,
Yeah.
where we need to have,
That's next week.
That's a week from today.
That's right.
March 11th,
To get it.
our reports?
For the Board of Selectmen's report?
Oh, not for the Board of Selectmen's report, no, for the printing of the, that's right.
No, so we haven't,
For the Board of Selectmen's, I'm talking about sending the warrant.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
No. I think we're okay.
Yeah,
We're okay. I think we have dates at the end of March for the final warrant article hearings, right?
Right, exactly.
Yes,
right.
yeah. I think we're good on that, and I think that I can work with Stephanie to put together, to help start putting their ideas to paper in a way that would still afford them enough flexibility to tweak things and change it around, and then have something prepared for you. Maybe not at the last one, maybe even a week before, the one before that.
Okay, that's all we're concerned about, yeah. Yep, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd say trying to do it at the last meeting is probably, like, I think that we should probably be shooting for not the last meeting, but the one before that. Cool.
Which would be which date exactly?
Ms. Kropelka can work with you.
Yeah, you can check with Mrs. It's
Council.
the end of March.
We've got at least 3 left.
Yeah.
The 5th, and then 2 others after that.
Yeah.
Well, we plan to get on Jenny's calendar very soon. and
Okay,
meet
good.
with you,
Great, thank
too.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Great, thank you very much. We now move on to Article 14, bylaw amendment, tree preservation and protection. Who's presenting on that? Mr. Hyde.
Mr. Curo, I'll try to be brief here. The purpose of this bylaw amendment is to provide a adjustment to the fee associated with tree removal on private property, and for one, make it better reflect the cost associated with the tree warden's work in this area and DPW's work to administer this bylaw, and 2, to bring it more in line with the public shade tree protection. And I want to note that this is not an adjustment that would take out people's options to plant trees as a way of mitigating. So this is only an adjustment to the fee. And the tree committee basically came up with 2 ideas. One was to set the fee for removal at a per DBH rate, which is somewhat similar to the way that we do it under public shade trees, although we're afforded a tremendous latitude under the law for public shade trees. And then the second way of doing it would be to just allow this board the authority to modify and set that rate on an annual basis. Now, to my recollection, that idea was brought up when this bylaw was initially passed, and there was some concern about the selectmen sort of having the latitude to set this fee however they want. But I think what the experience of the Department of Public Works, the tree warden, and the tree committee has been that this $500 fee is so low that it doesn't really have a meaningful impact in terms of the way that people might manage a site, that they're basically still okay with clear cutting a site when they're going to build a new home or make a major renovation. Also for the public, I want to remind everybody that this only applies to a limited, very limited category of things. It's when someone seeks a demolition permit or seeks a certain type of building permit. So you're only talking about trees that were within a certain area of the property. You're not talking about somebody who wants to take their own chainsaw and cut down an ugly weedy tree in their backyard. It's a very specific set of conditions that trigger the bylaw. That is not on the table. The only thing on the table is, can we set this at a higher rate that either is associated with how big the tree is, so that a bigger, more mature tree costs more in a fee to remove it, or can we grant the selectmen the latitude? That is the way that they do it in Concord, for example. They give the selectmen the ability to set the rate, and in Concord, I think the example that they use there is $375 per DBH, so that, a 10-inch DBH tree would cost $3,750 in mitigation fees rather than $500, and maybe get people to think a little bit more seriously about protecting the tree canopy in the private setbacks.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Heim? Anyone else here to speak to this article? I will say that my philosophy on fees is that it's not a good idea to put them into the bylaws themselves and have to go back to town meeting every single time you want to change a fee. They do age, and that it makes much more sense to have a process whereby the selectmen can have a public hearing if they're going to revise a fee schedule. That's kind of where I'm at on this. And I understand the goals here to try to equalize some of the treatment of different types of trees.
I think it's a good idea to do it by the size of the tree and have it be under the purview of the selectmen. I think that's fine.
Yeah.
But I think, if you're cutting down something that's a 2-inch caliper versus
Yeah.
something that's 36 inches around, it's
Yeah.
a very different story.
Yeah. But it sounds, if I'm understanding correctly, Concord puts it under the purview of the selectmen, but they use the
Technically speaking, Mr. Curo, they put it under the purview of the select board.
Or, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Touche, sir, touche.
I just know, but yeah.
So am I
that's it.
hearing, if this is correct, that we would make a motion of no action, but under our comments say that we're going to
No, I
do this under a Board of
I
Selectmen's
think we
meeting, have a
to
public
make-
hearing?
I think we have to make the bylaw change, and the bylaw references that the fee schedule will be adopted on a recurring basis by the Board of Selectmen.
Okay,
in a
I
public
misunderstood
hearing.
your
Yeah.
remarks. Okay.
And we've done this for some, we've taken this approach with some other bylaws where I think of, for example, the sandwich boards for nonprofit events and such, whereby there was a regulatory process associated with it that reverted to the selectmen.
Okay, I
We wrote that
misunderstood.
into the
That's-
bylaw.
I thought
And
you were
and
saying this should not go to town
No,
meeting.
no, it should go to town meeting,
Okay,
but
all right.
I would prefer not to write the specific fees into the bylaw.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I can support that, so I'll make a motion. I'll say, support changing the bylaw to make the rate set annually by the Board of Selectmen.
Second?
Moved by Mr. Dunn, seconded by Ms. Mahan.
And I also have a comment, which is that if we're going to do this, I think that we should include in our comment what we think the rate will be when we first set it.
Yeah.
So like, which is a totally, frankly, I mean, I think it's a separate conversation, but, you know, putting on my town meeting hat,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, we may need to have a rate-setting discussion at a future meeting.
Sorry, I didn't mean to break your train of thought. So just for a point of comparison, right now, the street tree caliper or per DBH cost is $50 per DBH, and the tree committee is currently working with Mike Rademacher at moving that up to $100 per DBH, so that would at least be an order of magnitude for the board to consider at a future agenda for rate setting.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay.
So, Joe, are you going to get that on a future agenda?
Yeah, we'll get that on for future agenda. We'll make a note to put that on, yeah.
Mr. Dunn, Mr. Chairman, if you'd like, I can try to make sure that the tree committee is present for final votes and comments to solidify that.
That'd be good.
That number?
That'd be helpful, especially if they've gotten further along in their work with Mr. Rademacher. Yeah. Okay, we now move on to Article 15, bylaw amendment, noise abatement, and I believe we have a citizen petitioner. Yep.
Hi, my name's Meredith Demola. I've lived in Arlington for about 4 years. I live on 47 Crosby Street. I have my notes here. I'm not going to be texting while I'm standing up here. But ultimately, the goal of this amendment, or this bylaw, is to create a bylaw that allows the police and people to have something to actually enforce. I actually was encouraged by, my personal story, I was encouraged by the police to come forth and propose this, because in our neighborhood we've had some specific examples of really loud and raucousy, crazy parties, and they were just like, there's nothing we can do. The only thing that we can really do is the only thing you can really do is to put forth an amendment in the bylaws. And I have lots of examples, which, I mean, I think probably you've read what I've put forth. It's not an actual, like, specific request for, it's just to kind of begin the conversation, if that makes sense. So I don't know how much detail you want, or...
Okay, Mr. Dunn.
I'd love to hear more.
You would?
Yes.
Okay, I mean, I even have like videos
Yeah.
of, but the thing is, I don't want to get too mirrored in the personal story, because I do believe that this is a bylaw that will help the community and not just the people in our neighborhood that are dealing with the challenges. But the way that it is, what has happened is over the last 4 summers, we've had folks in our neighborhood have like really, really large parties. And like I said, I have videos, but what this looks like is a live band. Like it basically, I felt like, I love music. It basically felt like I bought tickets to a show I didn't really want to go to. It was like really loud music, a live band, big, huge speakers, porta potties, the whole entire street was like jammed with cars. And this was going on from like 9 in the morning till 9 at night, which is the current law. And the police like, look, there's nothing we can do. All we can do is go over and say, hey, can you do the right thing and just be a good neighbor? But that's just really someone's inner, guiding light to decide that. And so they said, so the way that the rule works right now is it's like it's mixed together with the as I'm sure you know, it's mixed together with like the construction bylaw. And so it's set at 85, I believe it's decibels. And so what ends up happening is the police come, people don't tend to have parties between 9 and 5 Monday through Friday, which is when the Department of Health and Human Services, I am told, has this meter to adjust or to assess the decibel level. And so the police come and they're like, well, we don't even have a tool to assess this. And I downloaded an app, but that's like not super legit. So they agreed it was really loud. They kept coming. They were really kind. I believe there's a lot of documentation because I had a lot of conversations about this. And so, yeah, this has been going on in our neighborhood for lots of years. And the ultimate goal is just to figure out a way to have rules that are respectful of the neighborhood. Does that make sense? Yes.
Did you ever talk to the?
Oh, yes.
The people that run?
Absolutely, yes, yes. This is, like I said, this has been going on since the summer we moved in. So we moved in 2000, whatever 4 summers ago was. Absolutely, yeah.
They were not responsive?
No.
Okay.
I lived for 8 years on Stowcroft Road, so like across Bishop School from where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so is it like a single resident with like a single house that's doing it like once a year, or is it many houses multiple times?
No, it's one house.
Yeah.
And it happens multiple times throughout the course of the summer with no communication. It just happens. And we live in, where this is. It's a unique area because most of Arlington does not have big yards. Like these yards, they back up to the Bishop School. They're ginormous yards. People are coming from all over, and they're just like, yeah. But as I said, it's obviously you have a personal reason to come forth with this, right? But it's really about, like, if you look at the current bylaw, it's muddy. It's not super clear and transparent, and it's using rules that are impossible for the town to enforce. I mean, for lack of a better term, enforce. And to be able. I mean, if I didn't know what 85 decibels was until this happened, but if you listen to what 85 decibels are in your spare time, it's super loud, and it's a quiet neighborhood, and and obviously when I spoke with Doug, there are times when should be exceptions to like Porch Fest and things like that, right? But on a regular basis, it just seems there should be some type of bylaw.
Okay, I did want to note that we did receive correspondence from the Public Health Director who did point out, and it sounds like you're aware of some of the limitations of the request for the bylaw, that as far as sound level and noise meters, I mean, they're really measuring continuous sources of noise, so HVAC equipment and things
Right.
like that. So there's a concern that those would not be practical. And you note, I think that there is an issue with HHS doing enforcement. There is an issue because
It's just not possible.
The hours of compliance. I'm scratching my head on this one because it's a little difficult, I think, I think we struggle with issues of trying to enact a bylaw that covers the whole town to try to address a particular situation, neighbor situation. It does sound like the police have been helpful to you in that. And that
Well, they've been kind. They haven't been able to be helpful because they don't have anything that they can really do.
But they have spoken to presumably to the residents
Yes,
there.
absolutely. And if there's any way to get, I mean, I don't want to get stuck in this being like, you know, Meredith DeMola's 47 Crosby Street issue. It's, you know, I've talked to a lot of people about it, and it's something that a lot of folks, you know, obviously only got like 13 signatures because that's all I only needed 10 and I got a few extra.
Yeah.
But like it was so easy to get signatures, and they weren't even necessarily people who are neighbors across the board. It's just that there's no, the way it stands right now, you can get up at 9 in the morning and you can have a crazy party until 9 at night. And there's nothing that can be done about it. And, you know, going back to my personal story, and a lot of folks in our neighborhood have little children. I mean, I was literally in my daughter's bedroom, who was 4 years old, or 3 years old, 2 years old at the times, and could literally hear every word of the song. And I love music, but not at 7, 8, 9 at night. And this was going on. It's not like it happens and stops and happens and stops. It just goes all through the evening. All through the morning, into the afternoon, into the evening, and never stops.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I see there's someone else who wishes to speak to Thank you.
Steve Revlock, 111 Sunnyside Avenue, and how could I let a discussion of noise go up to the selectmen without bringing Dilboy into it? My street is directly in front of the Dilboy Field public address system, and it's been a chronic source of noise over the past few years. For better, you know, at times it's been better, at times it's been worse. So the reason I'm getting up here for two reasons. One is to relate just a couple of my experiences in dealing with Somerville, and this might help you out. The other is to just talk more generally about the town's noise bylaw, and I think I'd like to start there, actually. When I first moved to Arlington, the noise bylaw put a restriction on 85 decibels, which is to say it's sufficient to guarantee no permanent loss of hearing for Arlington residents. Well, that is a good thing to have. It is a low bar. Since I've lived here, we've added some restrictions around the use of leaf blowers. We've added restrictions around construction, and recently added a provision for the DPW so they could do work on a normal schedule. I think it would be nice if we could at least, if the town could consider possibly hiring a consultant or bringing in whatever expertise to craft a more encompassing noise bylaw, something that would take into effect time of day, day of week, the area where the noise is emanating from, like the decibel restrictions in a residential area, in a business area, and an industrial area should be different. And also to specify measurement procedures. Boston's environmental department has a measurement technique called L10, which I think would be suitable for a lot of cases, not necessarily the loud band in the backyard. But it's something I'd like us to, I hope we can think about doing. Now, going back to Dilboy, one of the things that, our neighborhood had sort of worked out with the city of Somerville was to have City of Somerville and the Department of Conservation and Recreation, what was basically to put limit caps on how loud their sound system could be, was to equip Somerville's community police with sound pressure level meters. So if things get really too loud now, we just call 311, and sometimes it makes a difference, not all the time, but it's at least we have someone to call. And the other suggestion I would make, and this is a very practical thing, if you do call the police, make sure 10 people call at once rather than one. But the last question I have, and this might be for Mr. Chapdelaine and Mr. Heim. I checked the state, the environmental department's regulations, 310 CMR 752, and it says, well, 310 CMR 710 talks about noise as the state regulates it. It goes into a little about what's noise, what's not noise, and who has enforcement power. Enforcement power comes from 310 CMR 752, and it's explicitly given to police, fire department personnel, and health departments acting within their jurisdiction. In my less mild-mannered years, I was one of the people playing in the bands at the house that's making all the noise. And yeah, sometimes the police came and told us to turn it down, and we did. So I'm honestly surprised that wasn't able to happen. But I'll end my remarks there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Town council have any?
Sure. I mean, what I can respond with is that the department that addresses these complaints, that's equipped to address them and trained to address them, has been our, health compliance officers, to my understanding. That's correct. Consistent. Correct. Yeah. So, it's who's authorized is less of is not necessarily the issue as much as who's trained to do it. And I suppose it's conceivable that someone else could be trained to do it, but I don't want to speak on behalf of the police chief or anybody else like that about whether our officers are, whether we're manned to do that kind of things. I will say that one of the big differences, and I want to express my sympathy, I live within close proximity to the Knights of Columbus in Charlestown. If you've ever been to Charlestown at the Knights of Columbus, it is a rockin' good time, often. And I have young children, and I felt my house shake. Cities have officers oftentimes who are specifically resourced to deal with these types of complaints. So part of what we may be dealing with is a resource issue. But
So I guess I have a few things to say, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair. So I do have a concern that we're looking for a catch-all to address what could be a somewhat unique situation. We didn't have the opportunity to prepare the data for tonight, but we are querying police call data to see how often or how regular we get calls about noise complaints stemming from parties using amplification systems. And I think once we're able to analyze that data, we can get a true sense of how widespread this issue might be. If it is widespread, then I think we could have a conversation about what the right sort of staffing and training level is to monitor decibel levels. If it's not so widespread, perhaps something that's more targeted on the actual use of the amplification device, and maybe having some type of test about what type of amplification devices are allowed to be used, maybe making it more similar to our leaf blower restrictions, as opposed to just a raw decibel level restriction. I'll also say, and even though it's not monitored, it wasn't, mentioned here in the materials, it was mentioned of having notification provisions for parties of more than 10 people. I think managing that and managing compliance with that would be nearly impossible. I speak, I guess, half professionally, half personally. I think 10 people is a very small party. And you could be letting your neighbors know every time you have your family over, which would seem onerous and a bit invasive for private citizens to have to notify their residents, notify their neighbors every time they had a family gathering inside their home. So I think that also ties into this feeling that we maybe are casting a wide net for something that's could be more unique. So I'd ask for the board to, I'd like to hear more feedback from the board, but before any vote's taken, I'd ask to be able to come back perhaps next week with a little more data to further the discussion.
I think that's reasonable as well.
Having worked with the Sunnyside neighborhood on the noise issue for years and years and years, and we went to the mayor of Somerville, who was not forthcoming. I think that the amplification noise is just dreadful. So I think you've brought up a very important question in town, and I think that the enforcement by the police, I think we need to somehow get the police to be enforcers, because they're apt to be doing the enforcing when it isn't 9 to 5. I don't think it makes sense to have the people that are doing it now be in charge of it, because it doesn't help people who are awake at 9 o'clock with 2-year-old children. That being said, I think we're going to be talking about this issue even more in my particular neighborhood because of the noise of the airplanes. So that's not, I guess that's not amplified music, but it sure is loud. So I think really looking carefully at the bylaw and thinking about some of the really important issues like the ones you brought up, the ones that the Sunnyside neighborhood has had to put up with. And I think what East Arlington is now dealing with some of the airplane noise, which even though I thought when I last talked to the town manager wasn't that bad, I should not have said that because recently it's been horrible. So I think we need to really look carefully. I like your idea, Adam, of going back to the police records and really doing a substantial search. So what you're bringing up isn't just one person not liking a party. That's the way it will come across to town meeting, and you'll probably lose. So I think the town needs to do a little work before we're really ready to go to town meeting. That's just my...
So is that a motion to table?
That's a motion to table.
Second.
Mr. Dunn.
I'll support the motion table. I have a few thoughts. One is, I definitely am very uncomfortable with any time we think of an answer which is something along the lines, I can't help you right now, come back during business hours. So I would really like us to talk about a solution that gives us, I mean, whatever it is, enables us to give a more flexible response to that. Now, that said, even in this case, even if, it was during business hours, according to the memo we've got right now, with our bylaws we've got right now, there's nothing we could actually do about it.
Right.
So like, I have several, like, I guess some kind of like serial points about this. Second thing I'd say is that the town meeting has a spectacular track record of getting itself in a knot about sound issues. So, so you see people giggling up here, but it's painful. Are you familiar with the leaf blower history in Arlington? It's this. Yes, exactly. It is a memorable or immemorable episode in our town's history because of that. And I'm also reminded of in 2005 when we had a noise abatement subcommittee and they came to town meeting and they gave a demonstration of 85 decibels by playing a recording of a rock crusher on the floor of town meeting, which was yet another memorable episode about town. And I can tell you, those debates were not quality debates. So like, I guess I just want you to understand a little bit that part of what we're thinking about isn't not just your words, but we're also thinking a little bit about the history that we've experienced with town meeting about noise. So I talked about the business hours. I talked about why noise can be a challenging issue for us. And I guess the other thing is that, I appreciate that you're looking for a tool that's broader. In some ways, I just want to, but if I can solve the problem that you're experiencing, when I look for trying to solve problems, I want to understand what the problem is, and then I want to think about all the different ways that we can address it. And so you're having a problem that's affecting the quality of life, your quality of life in your home, and I want to solve that problem. And a change to the noise regulation is one way to solve it, but I want to see if there's other ways we can use it that would solve the same thing. Because my goal is to solve your problem, not just to change the regulations around. So, yeah.
And I appreciate that totally. But my goal is not just to solve my problem, but is to also just to look at this piece of legislation and think, okay, this doesn't really make sense the way that it stands right now. I mean, I never thought that I would feel so passionately about something like a piece of a bylaw legislation. But when the folks at this party had the bylaw and the police were standing right next to me and they were just like, there's nothing you can do. The folks saying there's nothing you can do to the police and the police saying there's nothing we can do, take me out of it. Like, that just doesn't make sense. There just needs to be something kind of teased out. And I have some ideas. I know this isn't the forum to talk about those ideas. It's kind of broad on purpose, but just wanted to let you know that. So cool. Thank you.
Thank you
very much. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to table, and it's been seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous, and we'll look forward to report on that data, Mr. Manager. Great, thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you. That means that we will take it up again at a future meeting, but we're asking the manager to come back to us with additional information about the calls. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we have to act on it one way or another before let's go out to town meeting in, late March, early April, so we'll let you know.
Please,
Yeah,
definitely, please do.
yeah, thank you. Okay, we now move on to Article 16, bylaw amendment, time of town meeting sessions. I think that's Mr. Hayner.
It is. He's been here.
Thank you for taking the time to talk about time. It's on its face. What I'm looking to do is change the starting time of town meeting from 8 p.m. to 7 p.m. And to be quite frank with you, I'd like you to defer to the town meeting. In other words, let them do an up and down vote and discuss it like that.
Mr. Dunn.
When did we last put this to town meeting?
Yeah, I know.
I want to say 3 or 4 years ago. I copied the language and changed the dates.
Okay.
Be honest with you. Before I did it, I had the idea, I talked to quite a few people, young and old and things of that nature. Part of the thing, and as you see in your documents, it doesn't say end at 10 o'clock. Part of the thing is getting the meetings, the time of the town meeting to end possibly a little bit earlier. One of my frustrations is that at the end of town meeting, the last night or 2 nights, an awful lot of money gets spent without a lot of serious consideration because people are tired. That's a piece of it. And so I'm not asking, again, I'm not asking you to take a vote. I'm just asking you to let the town meeting debate it. I think this is something that's going to happen fairly quickly. It's not going to take a lot of time.
Am I recalling correctly that there was a poll that was taken of town meeting within the last couple of years?
Did about maybe 4 years ago.
I think that precipitated that.
I think the moderator can answer my question, if that's okay.
John
We did have a vote, John Leone, the moderator. We did have a vote on this a couple of years back to move it from 8 to 7:30. It was a warrant article. I forget what year it was, but that lost. And either last year or the year before, we used our clickers as a test vote.
Right, that's right.
To move, to see if they wanted to move it. And they decided to leave it at 8. I don't know if Bill's done or not, but I'd like, if anything, that this committee just issue no opinion on this article.
Right.
Let town meeting decide. The town meeting committee is going to meet on this one as well, and we will report on it. So our vote and our report could be the recommended vote for the meeting, and I think the legislative body should be separate from the executive body. We should rule on this.
So you're saying the Procedures Committee is meeting on this?
Yes.
To discuss it?
Yep.
Yeah,
And
because I
I've
was going to
invited-
suggest that
I've
we
invited Mr. Hayner to
similarly
come to
table
that.
for a recommended vote language.
So I'm prepared entirely to give, so I move that the selectmen not report on this and ask that the town meeting procedures committee report on this article.
We will be
Second.
reporting on it.
I have just one question. Is what's being discussed to go from 8 to 11 to 7 to 11? And I would say, the reason I say that is, please bear in mind that 8 to 11 right now has us coming in sometimes 6:15, definitely by 7 to have a selectmen's meeting. And
FinCom,
which
ARB,
mean, it
and all
would
those,
bring it back. That's fine, and if, we have to go, if a member of the board, that's fine, you have to go from 6 to 11, but if you could look at both ends of it, not just.
I think, if I may,
Yeah,
I think this is part of the discussion that would happen at town meeting. I think everything should be brought up. I'm not, convince me to not vote for it, okay? But enough people, when I thought about it, I didn't bring it just on for my own. A lot of people, I only had one person negative. I'm not going to say who it is, but I will be meeting with,
All
he's
right, thank
invited me to
you,
come to the
thank
procedure
you.
meeting.
All right,
Looks like
I think we have a motion and
2007, I
second.
think we did a vote. That's what I've
Okay.
got.
Okay. Okay.
Ready for a vote?
So there's a motion and a second to refer to the town meeting procedures committee. But I don't know, can we actually
Well, if
say
the-
that we
the
won't
moderator
report
gets-
at all?
The moderator gets to choose whose main motion goes forward, as I recall.
Well, I guess.
And so I think we're just, I hear the wind blowing through the trees, and I say, wow.
Isn't this just a no action and then?
I think it's,
Well,
we're not even gonna
reporting.
report.
If I may, if you vote no action, that's the recommended vote before the town meeting. If you defer to, or don't report on it at all, or defer your report to the procedure committee, our report would be the recommended vote to the town
All right,
meeting.
so let's
Okay.
vote on whatever we're supposed to vote on.
Was that your motion?
And my motion was to refer to the town meeting.
Excellent,
procedures committee.
excellent, okay,
Just
So let the crowd decide.
Yeah.
excellent, okay.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed? Thank you very much. Thank you for your Excuse me, patience. Joe, who seconded? Dan made the motion, but who's going to second?
Of course I did. And then we have Article 21, vote, Vision 2020. Anyone here? Yep.
Or Sue?
Hi,
Hello.
I'm Sue Doctorow. I'm here as a member of Vision 2020. And the purpose of our article is to change the name and update the mission of the Vision 2020 Standing Committee. So as a little background, the Vision 2020 was established by town meeting in 1992. The many volunteer and resident outreach activities coordinated and supported by the Standing Committee are focused around several town goals, which you can see on the Vision 2020 website. So several task groups operate under the Vision 2020 umbrella, and what we do is bring together volunteers that are interested in ways to implement the individual town goals, such as environmental sustainability, diversity, etc. So in 2015, at town meeting, the structure of the Standing Committee was revised and its mission was restated. And the main change was to divide this very large Standing Committee into a committee, a committee of voting members, and an advisory board, which is made up of town officials. So now what we're doing is we're seeking to further update the description of the Vision 2020 Standing Committee through this article. So you have the proposed vote in your packet. So basically, Part C is unchanged from 2015. That was Part B back then. Part D is pretty self-explanatory, so I'm just going to briefly go through A and B. A is a renaming, so the need for this is pretty obvious. Oh, sorry. I have a rock star, I guess. So the need to rename is pretty obvious because now it's 2018, so 2020 is not that far in the future. We really like the name because it's a pun. It's looking into the future. It's also clarity of vision. But it became clear that we couldn't really change it to Vision 2040 because that's impaired vision. So, so we came up with this name, Envision Arlington, and that's what we propose as something more timeless. Part B of the proposed vote is establishment and purpose. And here, pretty much what we propose is to keep the spirit of the original Vision 2020, but update our process to reflect the many ways that we and other town entities can communicate with residents today, which is really different from 1992. We stress maintaining and expanding an inclusive process, seeking input from residents, town personnel, and independent community groups, and bringing them together around specific issues as needed. Also, importantly, we really think of these town goals as more like aspirational or vision statements instead of goals. And so we have plans to engage the public and to update these vision statements, again, to reflect more what Arlington is like today. So I just have one example.
Nope.
A simple example of an update of there's a goal called culture and recreation. So we thought this might be divided into two separate vision statements known as something like arts and culture and open space and recreation. So split them out because we feel like when we do engage the public, both of these have a high priority for us, but they're probably going to attract a slightly different population of stakeholders. So that's just an example. So basically, I hope that explains the intent, and if you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you very much. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments?
Move approval?
There's a motion to approve.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Dunn. Any further discussion? No one else here wishing to speak to this? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank
you
you.
for
Thank you for
waiting
staying
so
with us.
late.
Oh, my Lord. Yeah, I know.
And that brings to a close our warrant article hearings. We now move on to final votes and comments. Town council informs me that there's still a little bit more work to be done on Article 8, and so we have nothing to discuss on that this evening. Correspondence received, we have a request for traffic calming in Kensington Park, Kevin Cottrell, 86 Kensington Park, and with Friends of Arlington's Great Meadows Annual Report 2017, Friends of Arlington's Great Meadows Steering Committee. Do I have a motion?
Move receipt?
We have a motion to receive.
Second.
Second. Are there any referrals anyone wishes to make? Mr. Chapelain.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the Assistant Town Manager has been in communication with Kevin Cottrell of Kensington Park, and we put this on correspondence received to ask the board to refer it to TAC for review.
Right.
Okay, do I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
So moved, okay. Second,
Second.
yeah, okay. So we have before us a motion to receive and a motion to refer to TAC. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? It's unanimous. We now move on to new business. Ms. Kropelka.
Nothing except for you're all invited to the police awards Thursday night.
It's this Thursday.
Just a reminder that it is Thursday night at 6 o'clock
Okay,
at the Sons of Italy.
okay, thank you. Mr. Hahn.
No new business.
Chaplain.
Ms. Kropelka took my new business.
Give it back.
Yeah.
Ms. Mahan. Yeah, Mr. Dunn.
I just wanted to bring, I love doing this. We got a thank you from a resident on, I can't remember what the street was, but they had a stolen wheelchair, which turned out to not actually be stolen, but they thought it was stolen. And the police officer was so kind, and on the following morning, I opened my front door to a lovely plant and sympathy card from Officer Conroy. And the thought and the care and the appreciation goes a long way. So I just
The
wanted to say-
important point is that the incident was reported on the day that her spouse had passed.
Yeah.
And she,
Yeah, though I agree. Thank you. It was the point that I was trying to get across was the just how valued the officer's response and involvement was.
Yeah,
It's wonderful.
yeah,
That's all.
thank you. Ms. Rowe.
I'm continuing to be worried about the noise house next to CVS and its continued decrepit condition. And I'd like to put it on an agenda or talk to the town manager about it. And also the redevelopment board, because it's really in their bailiwick. But the back of the house is in terrible, terrible shape. And I think we need to move.
Excuse me, Carissa, that's on the agenda for the building inspector. We had a complaint about it
Oh, good.
a couple of months ago.
Great.
Actually, it came from the secretary of the church, the First
Good,
Baptist
yeah,
Church.
because she could
And
probably
they've-
really.
and they've been in touch with Mr., what's his name?
Yeah, whatever his
You
name
don't
is.
remember? Yeah, no, what was the name of the place?
Yeah, it's really falling apart, and it used to be an incredibly beautiful house. And in fact, the old owner came to the Community Preservation Act looking for us to help them out, which was the wrong place. But I just think it's an asset that we could be using somehow in the town.
Great.
I think it's worthy of a board update and discussion at a future meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah. I have no new business. So we're now going to move on to an executive session. Before I ask for motion, Do you anticipate, Mr. Heim, that we would be coming out for any public votes?
No, Mr. Kuro, I don't anticipate that we'll be coming out for any reason. I anticipate that, as you know, the purpose of this executive session is purpose 1,
Yep.
which is to consider a complaint against public officials. The open meeting law complaint of Chris Loretti versus the Board of Selectmen. So whenever the board is ready, we take a roll call vote to go into executive session and adjourn the meeting in executive session, sir.
Okay, I'll take a motion to enter executive session as outlined, exiting only for the purposes of adjournment. So it's moved by Ms. Mahan.
Second.
Second by Mr. Dunn. Okay. Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Ms. Rowe.
Oh, yes, you taking Marie's?
Oh, it was Marie, I'm sorry.
She's supposed to do it.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Dunn.
Yes.
Ms. Crowe.
Yes.
Mr. Kuro.
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan.
Yes. No.
Okay, the board is now in executive session, and
So
so
we have to
ACMi, we have to go off the air, and we have to thank our other members of the press. We